a documentation of my first time ever painting a surfboard, and I'm going to share with you a few of the things that I learnt along the way. We're going to turn this blank baby into a bright, colourful baby. So first things first, you've got to prep your surface. I didn't actually film any of this process because it was pretty dirty sitting on the floor of the garage. But I will recommend, if you are undertaking one of these projects, to get yourself a heat gun. It was a lifesaver. I had originally thought in my mind that I'd just be able to scrape the wax off with a wax comb. Not at all. Heat gun was super helpful. So once all that was done, I decided that I was going to do like a full spray paint coverage on the underneath. This isn't something that you'd have to do if you wanted to have like the original board showing through behind your artworks. That would still be cool. This is just the way that I chose to do it. I probably should be wearing some kind of mask, I think, now, looking back on this. So don't follow my safety protocols. Alright, once all that spray painting was done, it was time to transfer the design. I was painting this surfboard for my good friends at Mambo. So there was a really specific design that I wanted to put onto the board that connected to some of the graphics that I had out with them at the time. So it was kind of important. It was a really detailed piece of work, and it was important to get all the elements right. So the way that I transferred the design was actually using carbon paper, printing it all out at a bigger size and then tracing over it. If you're in a similar situation and you want to transfer an exact design, there's a couple of ways you can do it. You can do it with a projector. I find that I get a bit like lazy and sketchy when I use projectors, and my arm gets really tired drawing sitting upright, so I tend to rush and miss things. But when you're using carbon paper or a kind of transfer paper, it's easier to know what details you've got and to be really thorough, which is why I did it that way. I will say a couple of notes on design here because this took forever. If you're doing this kind of project and you're not bound by a certain design that you actually need to use, I would go for something with way bigger elements, way less details, maybe something that you can freehand a bit more easily, and we'll get into that at the end of the video. But this took so long to get all the details in. As for materials, I'm using Posca pens for the outlines, and that's a Posca pen there. I used a bit of acrylic paint for some of the fill, and I struggled badly with it. The Posca pens have a bit better opacity, usually, than some of the acrylic paints. I know I talk a lot about how I'm still learning what's going on with painting. I'm a drawer from the get-go. But one of the things I found with acrylics is if you put white in, it ups the opacity. So that orangey colour that I was using at first, I probably should have just mixed a white in to build the opacity, or put down a white background to start with. So overall, there was a lot of layering to build up the right amount of opacity. Oh look, I ended up going back and putting a white cover over those orange areas because I just couldn't get a good opacity. So my advice to you here with your materials is really think about how your design is going to work colour-wise and figure out what colours you need to lay down, if you need to come in with some white backgrounds. And also, I suppose it depends what kind of artist you are. Like I said, I'm more comfortable drawing than I am painting, so Posca pens suit me really well. I have an inkling that they are perhaps not as archival as using an actual paint. I did seal them at the end, and I'll talk about that a little bit too. Oh, and here's a little behind the scenes of my dodgy filming setup. Very sketchy place to put your camera. Duct taped to a chair. Anyway, I got the majority of the main design done and kind of breathed a sigh of relief. And then I decided I was going to freehand flowers and stars over the rest of the board to give it a little bit more cohesiveness. And this part was really fun and much easier. I went with way bigger, simpler designs that I knew I could just kind of stick on there kind of more intuitively. And I sort of had got the hang of it by now, understanding that I needed to do a full white background on the parts that were going to be painted. And then at the end, I didn't film this process also, so I didn't film the start and I didn't film the end, but I did spray it with a clear matte varnish just to try and seal everything on there and protect it a bit because it did have to go into the post. Now, I will caveat this end section by saying sometimes the creative vision really bears out and other times it doesn't really. Now, I'm not talking about the surfboard, I'm talking more about the way I chose to shoot the final photos. I'm not sure why I had this idea in my head about representing both parts of my identity as an illustrator, which part of it is the kind of Australiana, Western, country, rural stuff, and also the fact that I live on the coast and love the beach. That's a Mambo shirt that I'm wearing too. That's one of the things that they are most famous for here in Australia, is their iconic loud shirts. But anyway, the bottom line is I roped Ben into a bit of a photo shoot and he was not very cooperative. The whole thing didn't make a whole lot of visual sense, but at least I have a good record of how the board ended up looking. I'm pretty proud of it. It was a lot of work. I don't know if I'll ever paint on a surfboard again. And I had to include this. So what he's doing there is smiling. I taught him that as a trick and now he does it whenever he's hungry or thinks he deserves treats. So anyway, that's the story of me painting on a surfboard and all the stuff I learned. I hope it helps you if you ever choose to paint on a surfboard.